Good morning, USC football fans. Connor Morrissette and Chris Trevino are here on campus after the 7th spring practice of 2024 for the USC football team. Chris, let's start with practice observations. Joey Olsen made a nice catch. Describe it for us.
Absolutely, yeah. I think we haven't been able to watch the wide receivers that much because they're so far on the field, and there's not a lot of them. They're limited on depth, but I did get to observe them today. I spent some time watching them, and yeah, Joey Ocean, I said Joey Ocean, which is a nickname we have for him on the composite two-star recruits. Joey Olsen, the freshman tight end, made an outstanding one-handed grab, kind of over-the-top ball, just drop right into his single mitt. So I thought that was the most impressive catch I've seen, watching in my limited time watching the wide receivers.
Two other takeaways for me. Jacoby Lane was doing some warming up, stretching out his hamstrings. He looked like a member of the Rockettes with those high leg kicks. He was getting his legs way above everyone else. And then Doug Belk was coaching Malachi Crawford a little bit hard. He didn't like one of the reps that Crawford took in one of the cornerback drills, and he let him know about it. And that was cool to see, a new coach getting on a second-year player, and it's nice to see guys accept the tough coaching. So even though we only watched for about 10 to 15 minutes, I thought that was noteworthy as well. But the biggest thing, after practice, we hear from new running back coach Anthony Jones, and it seemed like he has a character, Chris. It was really awesome to hear from him. He talked about how when he first got the call from Lincoln Riley, he was in a meeting room at TCU with his running backs, and he had a look on his face. The players asked him, is everything all right? He said, yeah, it's fine. But when Lincoln Riley calls you, it's significant.
Yeah, I think he said it was a dream come true to get that call from Lincoln Riley. And, he spoke about how he's played and coached with, a lot of the greatest offensive college minds in college football. Garrett Riley, Lincoln's brother, who's offensive coordinator at TCU while they made their run national championship game. Sonny Dykes, and obviously getting an opportunity to work for Lincoln Riley was right in his wheelhouse with the offenses that he's worked with. So, yeah, I thought he came off as really genuine and entertaining, and I'm looking forward to speaking with him more because he just came off so personable and likable. And, yeah, I was really impressed with Coach Jones, and he was funny. I think that anytime you talk to a coach, if he can be informative and funny, you go to the top of my list, and that's what Coach Jones was.
The funniest thing he said was how his wife has a crush on Reggie Bush, and he joked he didn't know how long his marriage was going to last for 7 a.m. That was pretty funny. Got me laughing too. He also talked about the current roster. I asked him, does USC potentially look to add another running back with only having 4 right now? And he didn't say one way or the other. He talked about how they'll sit down, Lincoln Riley and him, and they'll discuss it. So it's not out of the question. Lincoln Riley did say on Saturday he thinks the depth in the running back room is really good despite the fact that there are only 4 players there. Talked about how Woody Marks is a professional, has a lot of experience. And Quentin Joyner, he said he's made noticeable improvements from practice 1 to practice 7. I don't know if we can read into this definitively, Chris, but it seems like he's going to be RB2 as it's currently constructed, the roster. Do you think that's true after what you heard from Jones today? He didn't really come out and say it, but it just sounds like that with the way the roster is constructed, in my opinion.
Yeah, I mean, if they don't go into the portal and bring out another veteran running back, I would expect that running back to be RB2, assuming they get the offense down. But yeah, if that doesn't happen, I would fully expect Quentin Joyner to get a lot of burn in this offense. We saw what he did last year, has that speed, has that, ability to break tackles, and he flashed at times. Obviously they limited him because they didn't want to give him that much work, didn't want to overwhelm him, and they had a bunch of good veterans ahead of him, so they just wanted to give him a little taste. But yeah, if they don't go in the portal and bring somebody out, I think it's going to be a big year for him. I think Woody is still going to be RB number 1, but Quentin Joyner is going to be that change of pace back that they're going to bring in. A little bit different style runner than Woody, who is a really, really good receiver. Watching him run routes, he runs route like a receiver. He does not look like a running back running routes. But yeah, it could be a big year for Quentin Joyner, and we'll have to talk about what that means for the running back room if they do need to bring in a transfer. You have 4 scholarship guys right now. I don't think they even have a walk-on. I don't think there's a walk-on in that room to just give them save them some reps for the scout team. But yeah, I think they do need to bring somebody in. I mean, or do you save that scholarship and use it as a second wide receiver because they don't really have any depth right now? So it is an interesting question. They really wanted 2 running backs in this 2024 class. That did not happen, so they're kind of in a pinch right now deciding what to do if they have enough scholarships to spend it on a wide receiver or running back. I would assume they only can take 1. They're going to go wide receiver because they really need it. But I think they could get by with those 4 scholarship running backs. But It's really young. It's really young. But Quentin Joyner, I think, could be really, really good. And Jones mentioned that he was recruiting him when he was at TCU, and he said he understands why he came here, tailback U. No knock to TCU, he said, but, USC is a special place. LA is a special place. So he understands why Quentin Joyner, left Texas to come here.
To me, one injury in that room looks totally different, so that would be my big concern. A year ago, you had Raleigh Brown able to bring him off the bench, and even though he redshirted, he played in a couple games when USC was in a pinch, and Darwin Barlow had a couple big carries. So the depth, in my opinion, was a lot better a year ago compared to this year. We'll see what happens in the future. Last thing on Jones, he made a funny remark about the traffic. He was already joking about that. If you have a chance to watch him on our YouTube channel after you check this out, I'd definitely recommend it. And he said when he was deciding between USC, before he'd previously said no to an NFL opportunity coaching running backs, and he really prayed on it after getting the USC offer. And ultimately, when he came here with his kids, and his kids said, "Hey, Dad, are you going to sign here?" He took that as a sign that I need to go to USC. Chris, you also heard from Duce Robinson, who's, of course, balancing baseball and football right now. He said the biggest challenge for him right now is his schoolwork, which makes a lot of sense. What were your other takeaways from Deuce?
My biggest challenge in college was also my schoolwork, but I was not a dual sport athlete.
Me neither.
So I'm really impressed that, he's pulling it off. He's not playing. I don't think he's playing every game for USC baseball, but still, bouncing around, that's an impressive feat to do. And, Lincoln Riley obviously has experience with two-sport athletes, so that's something that they have experience with. They've talked about their plan before. But, it's just staying on top of all of that and, keeping a balance and not trying to give him too much. But, yeah, Duce Robinson expected to be a major contributor this season in 2024 after, having, some good action in last season as a true freshman. So I think a lot of people are expecting a lot of big plays out of him, now that they have a lot of catches up for grabs with all those guys gone in that room. So again, the depth is questionable, very questionable, but they have elite talent in that room, and Duce Robinson obviously part of that.
He also mentioned some standout defensive backs. Who did he name?
Yeah, usually when you ask players about the opposing position group, they say everyone's standing out, and he said that, but he did give out some names. DeCarlos Nicholson and then John Humphrey were the two first guys that he threw out there. Jacoby Covington, and then the freshman Marcellus Williams, the early enrollee out of St. John Bosco. He said he's been doing a really, really good job. And so, I picked him as maybe a dark horse that maybe we'll see on the field sooner rather than later. So looking good in my part, that Marcellus is already impressing so early in spring.
Anything else on Deuce, or should we move on?
I think we're good. I mean, just kind of, him talking about his connection with Miller Moss, and they're really good friends off the field. So there's already that built-in connection. And as we saw, they were early in the season when Moss was getting those, garbage time reps. Duce Robinson was the guy he was looking to a lot. So I would expect that connection to really carry over. As we presume, Miller will be QB1, and Duce Robinson, I would expect to be in that starting lineup. So I think that's going to be a connection that's going to pay off for USC's offense this season.
The last guy we heard from today, redshirt freshman offensive tackle Tobias Raymond. I caught up with him. I think it was his media debut, Chris, right?
Yes, that was his media debut.
He hadn't talked before. Nice kid, soft-spoken, talked about how he's repping at tackle now, and it's been somewhat of a challenge to get up to speed with all the weight that he's added, because he's gained 60 pounds in the 2 years he's been on campus. He certainly looks like the right tackle that USC hopes he'll be. I asked him about some standouts on the defensive side of the ball, and he mentioned Braylon Shelby, Jameel Muhammad, and Anthony Lucas as guys who are standing out. Does Tobias Raymond factor into the right tackle one position battle right now, Chris? Do you think that, or is he a little bit far away?
I want to say I think he's a little bit far away, but also I would not be shocked if at some point during the season, he is thrown into a situation where he has to be right tackle number one. I could see that happening. You look at him, he looks college ready. What does that look like on the field? We don't really know yet. We'll get a better taste of that in the spring game, seeing him out there. I'm assuming he's going to get plenty of reps, whatever unit he plays for. So, Tobias Raymond, like I said, just looking at him, he's put on a lot of weight, put a lot of work in the weight room, but now we just got to see it on the field. You have to see that development on the field, because it doesn't matter how much weight you put on if you can't play on the field. It doesn't matter. It doesn't matter. And I'm not saying he can't play on the field. We just haven't seen it yet. So I'm excited to see what Tobias Raymond brings to this season. I think he's going to be an important piece, just because we're talking about depth issues across the board here, but tackle depth is a thing. And when you move Monheim to center, you're leaving a big hole to be filled at tackle somewhere. And Tobias Raymond, size-wise, he can do it. I'm excited to see. He's a former basketball player. He's got some feet too, so I'm excited to see what that looks like. And it was great to hear that we got to talk to him finally, because I think he's going to have a much bigger role this season.
I do too. He's Chris Trevino. I'm Connor Morrissette. This has been Instant Analysis. We'll be back on Thursday after USC practices for the 8th time. Thanks so much for joining us, and we'll see you then.